So I really like to welcome Victoria. She is online with us from Basel, Tao from Bern, and Nicolas as well from Bern. So all of you have like 5 minutes, and after this 5 minutes, we will do a short Q&A. After 4 minutes, Vera will tell you have 4 minutes over, means 1 minute left. And after 5 minutes, there's a hard cutoff. So after 5 minutes, you have to be done. Yeah. It's quite easy for all of you. We have this little box here with the green and the red one. So green means go 1 forward and red go 1 backward. So I think that was everything. Any questions? If not, I will hand over to Victoria and enjoy the presentation from Victoria.
Thank you so much. First, checking everybody can hear me. Wonderful. So good afternoon, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank the organizers for having us this afternoon. I really look forward to hearing about everybody's current research and thesis progress. I'm Victoria Landau, and I will be going into an aspect of my PhD research with today's talk on why did the papyrus leave the museum? Ancient heritage on the move in the digital era. So documents on papyrus, a material used as a writing support, the ancient pendant to our paper, today serve the double responsibility as cultural objects and as text supports, as holders of knowledge. Here you see a symbolic representation of the digital state of the evidence that is quite common, with image quality in the worst case having a big impact on accessibility. So in this talk, I'll briefly highlight some problems that impact what we can currently even research at all when it comes to the ancient world. Quickly on my background, I double majored in my bachelor in ancient civilizations, focusing on ancient history, Egyptology, and Latin philology, and media studies, before continuing with an MA in ancient history and digital humanities. And now since last year, I am doing my PhD at the Digital Humanities Lab in Basel with my thesis, Rediscovered, Preserved, Forgotten, Ancient Cultural Heritage and Data Management in the Digital Age. I've also had the privilege this past year to be a research assistant in the ERC project DHCH2023, which is a project that aims at making, that amasses the textual and archaeological record of 4th century Christian Egypt, so early Christianity. And in my work and projects, I've mainly aimed at making ancient text supports, so papyri, parchment, tablets, ostracam, shards that you can write on, accessible and especially approachable both to an interdisciplinary landscape of scholars and to the broader public. 3 main aspects that are part of my research are, of course, analog and digital standards, which help with standardization, long-term accessibility, and looking at which actors are involved in every step of the process. 2 questions that accompany my research are the following. So the first one focuses on the 3 most common entities that use, archive, and curate ancient objects, and that is projects, institutions, and platforms, how these 3 entities can and would, due to tradition, due to what they're used to, approach an ancient object. And on the other hand, 3 aspects that impact how these entities can even work with ancient objects, which would be provenance and acquisition. How did an object even get where it is today? What technical infrastructure is available to the institutions housing the object, to researchers working with the object, and to the public that is supposed to access the object. And third, available standards. So the topic of interoperability, what standards are available for the specific evidence in question. There are multiple elements to consider for this, and for the next minute, I'll focus on the aspect of mobility of objects, since we are dealing with movable heritage, as an example for what my PhD thesis entails. So we see here is the visualization of a life cycle of an ancient artifact. This is based on a specific example. So these 6 points actually happen to the specific object. And what we're looking at here is a papyrus that was found in Egypt, and not just a papyrus sheet or a papyrus fragment, but actually a papyrus codex, which has 72 folios. So it's quite an incredible piece of evidence. Allegedly found in a specific space in Egypt in 1952, but the exact find spot is a little controversial. It was then subsequently offered for sale on the local antiquities market, kept by local dealers, until it was purchased by a Swiss individual, Martin Bodmer, in 1956, so 4 years after its alleged discovery. It then stayed in the Fondation Martin Bodmer, which you might be familiar with in Geneva, until the early 2000s, when the institution made the decision to sell the object due to financial reasons. So it was sold off at auction at Christie's to another individual, this time to an American called Frank Hanna. And this was not a usual collector of antiquities as we might know them, because what I have neglected to tell you so far is that this was not just a regular codex. This codex actually contained sections of the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of John, making this a very important artifact for early Christianity. So Frank Hanna bought this specific codex not to keep, but to gift it to the Vatican itself, where it is now apparently housed. There is also the possibility that part of this codex is not in the Vatican, but still in Atlanta, Georgia. We're not quite sure. So we see here that these different points, these different sections that are on the left and the right, are all the different fields that are affected by this single object. And that gives us an indication of how much a single object can, needs different fields to really be fully looked at. And if I'm correct, I think my 5 minutes are up. I can't hear from your side. So I'm gonna thank you guys for your attention, and I look forward to your questions during the Q&A session.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Next one, you want to start here or stand up?
I just did it. It's okay.
Right? Okay, let's go.
You have to unmute the microphone. Hello? Okay, so we're good. Hi everyone, my name is Tao. I'm so happy that I can be here to share my dissertation, and my topic is about multimodal knowledge graph construction of Chinese intangible cultural heritage. And before the start, I introduce myself briefly. And currently, I'm the PhD candidate in information science. I'm from Nanjing University, China. And many thanks for Professor Tobias' invitation. I can have the chance to be the visiting PhD student in digital humanities, University of Bern, so that I can have the chance to attend the DHCH. My research interests mainly focus on the knowledge graph construction and application in cultural heritage. And also I did some research about the information extraction from the cultural heritage text. And also multimodal machine learning, such as the multimodal sentiment analysis is also what I am interested in. So my dissertation is mainly about the multimodal knowledge graph construction and the application of Chinese intangible cultural heritage. And today the point is in the construction side. So what is ICH? And ICH refers to a variety of traditional cultural heritage, cultural manifestations inherited by generations, including the social practices or traditions, folk music, customs, arts. For example, the New Year print, paper cuttings, the craftsmanship of mechanical watchmaking, all can be seen as the ICH. And so why do we need to build the multimodal knowledge graph? The advancement of the digital technologies accelerate the documentation of ICH, leaving a large amount of data. However, the invaluable ICH data is underutilized and stored in the different databases and dispersed on the internet and in a state of fragmentation. And related knowledge are not linked well, and it is not beneficial for the public to understand the ICH. And the knowledge graph oriented to the cultural heritage, mainly based on the text, and it is difficult to establish a visual perception without related knowledge and experiences. And for example, when I refer to the male embroidery, and if you don't have the related knowledge or the background, and it is very hard for you to to understand this ICH in the vision. So, and yeah. And then my research problem is how to build the multimodal knowledge graph. And normally the ways to construct the multimodal knowledge graph can be divided into from symbols to images and from images to symbols. And to adapt our context, we define the ways as from ICH entities to images and from ICH images to entities. And in the way from ICH entities to images, and considering there are millions of ICH images, it is very hard to assign all images for every ICH entity. or ICH project. So what we need to do is select representative images for the ICH project. And specifically, we summarize the whole process into the following steps. The first step is to denoise the images from the massive images scraped from the Bing and Baidu sources. And then we rank the clusters and select the representative clusters based on the criteria, because we believe that if we can select representative images from the representative cluster, then the selected images can be more representative. And lastly, we integrated the selected images to the text-based knowledge graph to generate the MKG. And similarly, to understand the ICH image deeply, we also try to adopt the way from ICH images to entities to build the multimodal knowledge graph. And basically, what we need to do is detect the entities in the ICH image automatically. And then to achieve that goal, and the technical route is designed as first annotate the entities in images, and then we utilize the annotation data to fine-tune the YOLO models to realize the automatic detection of the ICH entities in images. Yes. Overall, this is my last one. And overall, in this dissertation, I expect to offer the large-scale and comprehensive Chinese ICH MKGs and feasible frameworks to construct MKG in cultural heritage, and also try to build a question-answering system over the MKG to provide the service in realistic scenarios. And that's it. Thanks.
Great. We're kind of in time. And then
Good.
Great. And you can start.
Take a minute. All right. We're not going far away from here. We're staying in Rome, and we're trying to decipher the Pope. And we're doing that with distant reading, historical source material with digital tools. And this is a condensed version of my master's thesis that is still not complete. And also a second thesis that's being done for my minor in digital humanities. So I'm trying to keep it short. Who am I and how did I get here? It's Tobias's fault I'm here, but I can't blame him because he's not here. I'm a master's student at the University of Bern. My master's thesis is Economy in Family and Church, where I look at the Pope's economic understanding, basically. My fields of studies are the early modern and medieval history, and also the digital humanities. My specific points are papal history, diplomatic history, and also social and political networks. What is this about? Like I said, it's about the master's thesis, or a condensed version of it, where I look at the economy as a form of oikonomia. It comes from the Greek version of it. It's not economy just in a financial space, but it's more about managing and administrating the house, the oikos. And I look at it from Prospero Lambertini's perspective, Pope Benedict XIV in the middle of the 18th century. He was at the same time also the Archbishop of Bologna, and he was the head of the family of the Lambertini. So he has three oikos to manage, and I'm looking how he does that relating to his role, which practices he uses within those roles, and in which economic frame of thought he actually handles, in which he acts with the practices. So what's the source material? It's a pretty big corpus. It's found in Bologna in the Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna, MS 4331. It contains 8 books and 1,397 letters from the Pope to his administrator in Bologna and his family agent, and it contains about 3,000 pages, more or less. What did I do with it? I was lucky enough that there was a register of it, so someone has looked at it and has written short paragraphs to each letter with roughly the contents within those letters. But as we've said before, never trust anything anyone else does. So I took this register, I digitalized it, I let OCR run over it, and then I exported it to Excel, and then let 2 tools run it. That's Voyant and Mallet. Let's go back again. doesn't want. There we go. Voyant and mallet, and those are tools that are used to figure out which keywords are within a corpus of historical or any source material, basically. It highlights themes. It allows a distant reading on a corpus you don't have the time, like I did in math thesis, don't have the time to look at if it's such a vast corpus. So it helps figure out which are important points within the corpus, and also see a long-term perspective. You can see trends with it. And I have a short example of it here. If you look at the word salute on top, this is done by Voyant. I left out the mallet because of the time constrictions. So this is Voyant. On top, you can see a word cluster that was generated by it with the most common words within the register. There's a whole lot of them. Interesting was, for example, the nipote, the nephew, one of the most important roles within the papacy of the early modern age. He left him at home to quote Pope Benedict XIV because he was an imbecile, basically. And that's the citation right there. So it's an interesting corpus. And what's really interesting, if you look at the salute for here, that's health in Italian, and on the bottom you can see what mallet did with this. So I can look into each letter containing salute, the word salute, and its trend over the whole time period. So that's 1740 to 1758. It helps me then to figure out which are the key moments in relation to this word. For example, we can see on the latter part, there's a really high graph. That's when he first got sick, and then the last one, that's before he died. So by looking at it this way, I can see, okay, that's an interesting part. I'm going to go in it, and then I can look at it in the corpus. Thank you. Yep. Yes, good.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad that you're not suffering this problem that some other academics suffer, that they cannot stop talking. So you did great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Maybe I start. So you're doing a lot of your research with field work in the digital field. Do you face any problem there?
Mainly time constraints to use the digital humanities right now, because I come from the historic field, so digital humanities is sort of helping to get into those corpi, and yeah, it's mainly a time restraint with it, that I don't have the time to actually use the digital tools as much as I would like to, because I have to be close to the source material. Another thing is with the Italian, I also use Transcribus to get over the source material, and there is an evident lack of language models in the Italian language that are usable for this time period. And mainly also with Voyant, for example, the stop words was interesting, because when I activated the Italian stop words, it didn't cancel any stop words, but when I used the auto detection, it did. So I'm not really sure why it did that, and I'd have to look into that, why it does that. So those are the main problems I faced. Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you. Also, a question for Nicolas. I know that you do topic modeling with mallet. Are there? You don't have to explain that. I know it's going to be too long.
You're going to hear it tomorrow.
Yes, I know. but are there? I mean, what you have with Voyant are basically also topics. Are they different from the ones you have in mallet, or do you have like similar fields at least?
They're mostly overlapping. The problem with mallet is that the topics are kind of random, and you can't really ascribe it a certain feature within that topic, and that's the problem. It shows you which topics there are and from which letters they come from, but then you kind of have to subjectively interpret those findings, the analysis. And I have not figured out a good way to deal with that yet, but I'll have to compare it to the Voyant. That's an ongoing process, but I'll have to compare them side to side to say something about that.
Then we already switched. And then, I mean, we can also discuss later on again these topics, right? So thank you very much. So can the next go?
Hello? Okay.
Great.
That's working fine.
Thank you very much. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start.
Okay. So yeah, I'm happy to give you a short insight into my PhD project today here. The thesis is currently running under the working title of What Must Be Captured? Digital Materiality of 3D Cultural Heritage. But before I start, I want to give you short background information about myself. So I did my master's in conservation and restoration of paintings and sculptures at the University of Applied Sciences in Bern. In 2021, I'm working as research assistant and research associate at the University of Basel. Since 2022, I'm also doing my PhD there at the DH lab. And since 2023, since this year, I'm also a 3D employee at Virtual Culture for various different kinds of projects. In an interdisciplinary field like the digital humanities, I think it makes sense to define use terminology first to ensure that we all talk about the same. In most of literature, digital materiality refers to the physical attributes and effects of digital objects. So despite their virtual nature, digital artifacts can possess tangible qualities and also impact human perception, and therefore you can say they own materiality. This approach on digital materiality often led to very complex theoretical and also sometimes even philosophical concepts, but my thesis needed to have some more pragmatic definition of the term, which is somewhat closer also to the physical material. So digital materiality here in my definition refers to the digital representation and also digital reproduction of physical material properties of an original made possible, for example, through 3D digitization and also computer graphics. The application of 3D digitization methods gradually extended over the last years into a wide range of humanities research fields and also GLAM institutions. But despite the widespread practical 3D digitization, the active use of 3D objects by researchers and professionals is still very limited. And the question here is, why is that? In addition to the often discussed challenges of 3D data, such as the lack of standardization, complex data management, and limited accessibility and also interoperability, a crucial, but in my opinion, underrated and under-researched issue is the state-of-the-art 3D digitization technology and consequently the quality and accuracy of the digitized material itself. So on the slide here, you can see 3 examples of common visual documentation methods. So we have the RTI on the left, then the image-based modeling, which is photogrammetry, and also photography. For these examples here, the same camera was used, the same lens, almost the same lighting, and also the images got the same post-processing. But as you can see, they still look pretty much different from each other. And they also give us, or prevent different kind of information, which also means that for each method, we lose some information of the object. This often overlooked aspect results in the omission of crucial information and consequently reduces the usability of these files. I argue that archaeologists, art historians, and also restorers are reliant on accurate and authentic visual and documentation that faithfully can reproduce the physical material, so geometry and surface characteristics of the original artifact. So the inevitable question arises, what must be captured, and if there are limitations in capturing certain information of the object, how can we still provide that information to the user to make the object understandable and also more usable? To address these questions, a qualitative and quantitative survey will be undertaken by generating and sharing sample data sets of selected originals using common documentation methods like we have seen on the slides before. In addition, there may be the possibility to investigate a new kind of technology within a 4-year planned SNF Bridge Discovery project between the DH Lab, the ETH, and the FHNW, which tries to make a fusion out of photogrammetry and RTI to generate a new kind of 3D texture files that take into account properties such as gloss and also reflection. So concluding, it can be said that my dissertation aims to investigate the quality requirements and also the inherent limitations of 3D data derived from contemporary 3D digitization methods. In particularly, it focuses on the requirements of such data for the practical application, highlighting the topics of investigation and interpretation of material and materiality. So the dissertation seeks to identify prevailing challenges and potential solutions, thereby trying to enhance the usability of 3D objects, using them for research, education, mediation, and publication.
Nice. So our next.
Kapitolina. Yeah. I will be just quickly introducing myself. I don't really have a presentation since I just started the project and I was confirmed very last moment. So I'm really happy to be here today. I'm in the last year of my master's studies in digital humanities and political science. And I have a background in the computer linguistics and web development. So the project that I just started, it's in collaboration with the EPFL University in Lausanne and Montreux Jazz Festival. So for those who don't know, the Montreux Jazz, it's not just about jazz. There is a lot of technologies behind the project, and they had a very long digitizing project that lasted around 20 years. That is almost finished. So they digitized the whole collection of the video recordings of the concerts that took around 500 terabytes in total. So that was about the musical part, and the project that I just started, it's about digitizing the private collection of its founder, Claude Nobs. He passed away 10 years ago, but still the chalets, they still welcome guests each year, and the collection that he has in these chalets, this is the unique example. You can have musical instruments, the art pieces, and for now it was closed to public, so we just started with the first 2 visits to digitize this collection. And yeah, the idea is to create relational database to collect all the information, conduct interviews with the people who have some stories to tell about these objects. So yes, that's my firing talk for now. I hope to give you more updates and more details maybe in the next DH event. Thank you.
Well, hello, my name is Makaratzi and I'm a PhD student in digital humanities at the University of Basel, focusing on digital art history. Through my studies, I explore opportunities to merge art history principles with innovative and research-based technology practices intended to contribute to our understanding of art history and how we engage with the arts in the post-digital era. Art history relies on visual interpretation, and advancements in computer vision and art and machine learning create new possibilities and challenges for the field. Image analysis technologies such as pattern recognition, visual instance retrieval, and semantic recognition algorithms enable automatic comparison of images in large data. This facilitates their classification, visualization, and dynamic search. Direct processing of visual data it reduces reliance on metadata and changes digital art history. This presentation discusses the possibilities, challenges, and perspectives of large-scale image collection analysis and interpretation. Pattern recognition and visual retrieval analyze iconographic collections by identifying motifs, objects, figures, and other details. They uncover patterns in composition, color, light distribution, and content to reveal precise iconographic and stylistic information. Semantic recognition enables classification by style, genre, and artist. It is also possible to describe regions formally and sort images chronologically to observe temporal changes. Outliers and clusters of images with shared characteristics can be identified. Analysis of multiple artworks can provide valuable insights not available in individual analysis. Through media visualization techniques, these connections are presented comprehensively on a single digital canvas, expanding our perception of cultural collection significance. Lastly, integrated network presentations on museum collections positively affect museum attendance. The challenge lies in interpretive technology. I'm sorry. The challenge lies in interpretive technology's lack of transparency in its process of interpreting the world. Scale is not objective in the digital realm, as especially art historical data convey contextual rather than factual information. Computer vision algorithms analyze images mathematically, making interpretation beyond a mathematical framework difficult. This has led to a kind of neo-formalism or neo-visualism in digital art history, prioritizing formal properties over cultural, historical, and ideological context. Emphasizing completion, unity, categorization, and efficiency may result in establishing a rigid canon. When information becomes detached from individual observers, the risk of enforcing norms and unquestioned assumptions increases. Art history and computer science should collaborate and engage in interdisciplinary discussions to address current theoretical issues. By developing classification models based on critical study questions, we can uncover biases and explore new research areas. Advancements in manifold learning algorithms increase flexibility and prevent rigid image classification. Notably, unsupervised clusters can be transformed through supervised training, where the model learns dynamically from experts' inputs on artwork connections. In the age of computer science, of computer vision, the question arises: who is the viewing subject? As Manz et al. State, quote, authorship like vision is an expression of subjectivity in a particular moment and place. End of quote. Large-scale image analysis requires a humanistic work environment that reflects the subject's agency. Full integration of user profiles enables transparency of arguments and critical evaluation by experts and audiences. Thank you very much for your attention.
Earlier?
Yeah.
So, Fabrizio.
Fabrizio, yeah.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. And yeah, I'm Fabrizio Gitto, and I live in Florence, in Italy. I am an art historian and a photographic historian, and I'm specialized in theories and practice of photo archives, in architectural and landscape photography, and in intersections between photography and contemporary art. And in addition, I have cross-disciplinary skills in digital humanities, graphic design, and publishing. And in 2018, I graduated with a major in photographic history at the University of Florence. And in 2020, I taken a second level master's degree in digital humanities at the University of Milan. And currently, I am a research collaborator at the School of the Advanced Studies of Lucca, and I am a PhD assistant at the University of Italian Switzerland in Mendrisio. And my PhD research is an in-depth analysis of photographic rules in architectural magazine in Italy between 1975 and 2010. And with my research, I want to demonstrate how for decades the architectural magazines have been among most important tools for the growth of contemporary photographic cultural in Italy, still representing spaces where to experiment new approaches between architect, photography, typography, and publishing. To better understand my research topic, I present one of the most important examples in my research. And in 1983, the most important landscape photography in Italy, Luigi Ghirri, published on the Italian architectural magazine Lotus a visual essay on the new cemetery in Modena in Emilia-Romagna region. In this double page, there are 14 color photographs organized for recalling the geometry and of the building. And the building is not represented entirely, but only for fragments. And this solution is relevant to explain how architectural magazines in Italy, such as Lotus, were interested in the aesthetical and critical value of photographs, collaborating with the most important photographers in the country. In addition to my topic, to the topic of my PhD research, I am interested in the multidisciplinary approaches and in the use of new technologies in the humanities and in the art history. I would like to connect photographic history and digital humanities with new idea and a vision that go beyond the simple use of cataloging software and digitization of heritage. In fact, since 2019, I have been working on several projects on the digitization of photographic heritage. In these campaigns, the photographic objects are often reduced into the images. And when we are lucky, we can digitalize their backs. Currently, the only solution without 3D technologies is to photograph the photograph from all sides. And the result is many 2D images of a 3D object. And what happened to the thickness? This is my main question for this summer school. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Also, the chat is also open for questions for those who are like participating. I would have some questions, but first I'll ask. Okay. Are there any questions? Christian? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question for Ismini. I saw that your master's thesis was about distant viewing.
Yes.
How does it relate to distant reading, and what does distant viewing contain?
Yes, it's based, the term is based on distant reading. I mean, it's trying to studying large data set image at the same time, same text with books. The term is coming from distant reading. Yes. It's,
Maybe I can jump in. Speaking about distant reading or analysis, and we're closer to the methodologies, I understand, that are rather associated with data science. And then I think an interesting question is, you mentioned it, the subject agency. Do we reflect on that when we are doing data science? Where is this part? It's kind of also a bit what Marian mentioned. Maybe because I think it's a really it's reflecting on the digitized object, right? And question this one on its quality.
Yeah, I don't have yeah, I don't work in a project with 3D software or 3D approaches, and this is my first time where I will try to think and to on this 3D opportunity, and the agency is important, is a main question, but I need to understand better the question about 3D software and 3D opportunity and approaches.
In the other projects, where would you see the problems of the subject?
Well, I mean, in my project, it's pretty clear that it's almost all about that. So mostly we are confronted always when we are doing 3D digitization that we end up with an object where you can't really be sure at all if it's even really displaying the original, and also still using it everywhere. And I think the main problem we have there is to get people to understand that we are working with somewhat like a tool, more or less, and not with a real representation of the original. And that's pretty difficult to get into the heads of many people. Yeah, because they think, most of the people or museums that want to have 3D objects, they pay for the digitization, they look at it and they think it's looking pretty nice, and then they just store it in a database and then it's pretty much gone. But you can't really, there's never really a process of really comparing the original and the digital artifact next to each other and then decide, is it really worth digitizing everything with this and this method, or is it applicable but it's just done because you can do it? And that's what I think has to maybe a bit to change.
I think to me it's central to my research question. Where is the subject in computer vision when we analyze artworks, historical artworks or contemporary artworks? And I think it's where it's a big contrast between the two different ways, for example, how sciences work and how humanities methodologically work. And I think this is, I don't know if it is constructed or it's how we learn to do things, but it is really a matter of subject agency. It's very central in humanities and art history, because otherwise we cannot see objective, we do not accept, I think, objective interpretations in humanities. So this is a bit of a contrast, and it's interesting to see how we could really merge these two knowledge processes.
Do you already have an idea how you're gonna
Regarding 3D models.
and also maybe the subject age? Yeah, the kind of maybe also format you're gonna envisage for digitization.
Yes, it's not only digitization, it's also the research project. So for now, my goal is not to digitize the whole collection, but to take a representative sample. So to create the structure for the categorization, and then the relationship between those objects. I would use the 3D capturing for the train models. Well, that would be making a model of already existing model. So, but from the historical perspective, it would be interesting, because all these trains, they were real, and many of them, yeah, they don't exist anymore, unless in some really distant museums. So these are the only objects that I would capture in 3D. But for the others, it would be just image capturing. But it's more about the stories that are behind those objects. So this is my goal is to collect as much information as we can, because all the people and the musicians who witnessed the festival and who got to know Claude in person, they are getting older, and we are losing people every year. Well, Tina Turner just passed away, and yeah, sadly, we have this urge to save these memories. So.
Sorry for bothering again. Just a small input on agency. I think by experience, when speaking to people not dealing with digital humanities all that much, the problem is that they take the data we gather and we create by face value. For example, if you create a geographical visualization, it's taken as face value. Also, the word cluster I showed, if you just look at it and take it as it is and don't question it again as a new source, I think you give agency to the machine that's doing it for you. And I think that's really dangerous when trying to put an interpretation on it. And so I think you have to give it some agency, but you have to take it back and really apply what you know as an expert of the field, or with the human skills of interpretation, you have to go over it again and put your agency over it. But that's just what I see in the historical field.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I was also, I mean, I see a lot of similarities, maybe also in the media of reproduction, as photography was already a very strong media of reproducing things, and you're working with models, which is also a kind of reproduction, and we kind of handle them as objects maybe and not as tools, because they gain as a value for us to really look at them. Also, I thought that when you showed the images of the magazine, these are kind of they have their own aesthetics, so they become very valuable. and have this also agency of the medium in it. So I think it's very interesting and an important thing for digital humanities researcher to keep that in mind. Are there any others? If not, then we have a short break. Thank you very much.
We have a lot of space because she's online. So
Okay. So we're back again here. We hoped that maybe Tobias Hodel will be here for this session to start, but as now 1 minute before the actual start, I think, yeah, we just hope that at the end he will be here and continue with our lightning talks now. So, David, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Great. So,
Ready.
the floor is yours.
I'm David Segev, and I'm currently a PhD student in Lugano, Switzerland. And as you can see, there's my PhD thesis title, which in Italian is Talmud Contraffatto, which can be translated in the counterfeited Talmud. And I will talk you about this. Between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, a series of texts were published that contribute to the formation of a true anti-Jewish system that came about in gradual stages. Over the time, all this generated in Christians a replacement vision of the Jewish people, in the sense that it led the collective imagination to disown the ancient people of Israel in order to create a new, decidedly hateful one to defend against. The greatest responsibility lies with those Jews converts who, in order to obtain the innumerable privileges that the church willingly reserved for those who left Judaism to embrace the Christian faith, decided to denounce above all those passages of the Talmud that, in their opinion, were against Christianity. Most Christians, since they didn't know Hebrew and were therefore unable to check the accuracy of what the converts claimed, and based only on the trust in them, accepted whatever they assumed and claimed. The accusations of the former Jews led to repeated confiscations, numerous bans, and burning of many Jewish texts, whatever they contained, but specifically of countless copies of the Talmud. In this regard, we have to talk about the Paris dispute of 1240 and the Barcelona dispute of 1263 that have become famous. Nicolas Donen, a Catholic Jew converted to Christianity, sent a memorial to Pope Gregory IX with 35 accusations against the Talmud, including that it contained blasphemous accusations against Jews, against Jesus, and Mary, and attacks against the church and the Christians. Rabbi Yechiel from Paris supported the Jews' defense, explaining that these accusations were false, because nothing of the sort was written in the Talmud. But the Christian, not reading Hebrew, believed what Donen said, and the result of the trial was that the Jews were found guilty. So, after the dispute, confiscation of all their books were carried out, and is reported of 42 wagons full of thousands of manuscripts that were burned in Place de Grève in Paris in 1242. In my work, I analyze mostly the Bibliotheca Sancta, a manuscript written by Sixto da Siena, Sixtus of Siena in English, from 1566. And this is undoubtedly a work of great importance for the history of biblical criticism. So important that it's also influenced all those who dealt with the Talmud in later years. It cannot be forgotten that Sixtus was one of the most widely circulated texts that entered the libraries of Pope, universities, preachers, all the libraries, and courts, of course. And there are 51 quotations that Sixtus claimed to have personally taken from the Talmud, but in reality, in all or in part, they did not reflect the original text because they have been forged. The history of Christian-Jewish relations has not always been told in a neutral manner. There are official documents and others that are hidden and forgotten, because in some historical periods, it was preferred to obfuscate all the elements that could have shaded the intended narrative. This is the case of the imaginary Rabbi Abra. And I wanted to re-examine some papers from trials in Naples in the 1600s. And it was digitized, of course, and I was able to uncover an interpretative distortion that did not take into account the trial proceedings, probably due to religious or philosophical condition. I've published this work of mine, and demonstrating that the inquisitors themselves did not believe in the existence, even in existence of this rabbi. And with this short speech of mine, I hope I have at least tried to underline the importance of reading the text of Hebrew literature correctly and the original version. Surely, through the digitization of this text, will reach a day when no one will be able to modify and alter the truthfulness of a text. And finally, scholars will be able to approach this branch of study without being victims of prejudices or preconceptions created by others before them, and will be able to completely eliminate those forgeries that have done so much harm to the Jewish world. Thank you.
So, Christian, ready?
Yeah, as soon as the presentation is.
Great. And the third one is then Chiara, and which also hopefully.
Yeah, so still waiting for the presentation. Can start without it, but I think it's much nicer with a view. And you don't have to look at me instead of this nice presentation. I think they're still working there.
Great, I see Chiara already, so I think she will be ready for the next.
Do you want me to go or?
No, I think,
No,
I don't know if they have a technical problem, I don't know.
Ah, okay, okay, then I stay muted.
Ah, no. So Christian, you go with.
No, I think they pointed out you, Chiara, first. It's okay, you can start before.
Wait, whichever, I'm happy to. I can share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Oh. If you can see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Chiara. I will introduce a little bit about myself. I am from New York City and I did my bachelor's in photography and art and then was a photo editor for 10 years at a magazine in New York at Vanity Fair. So photography is definitely my forte and my mode of doing research and work. I'm currently doing my master's thesis at the FHV in Basel at the HGK in experimental design. And with this, it's kind of a critical, open-ended topic that we can all choose. And I decided to work and take stock of my stuff. And by doing that, usually when you take stock of your things, you are looking and assessing at all of the objects that you own to throw something out. When in fact, I wanted to do it for the other way around to how can I get the next object? So by doing this and by trying to create my own sort of database and inventory, I started photographing everything that I own in Basel individually and started to try connecting the dots and making some sort of relevance by making their own dossier for each object of how it became mine. With this, there are a lot of different ways of mixing and matching things together, be it, I think there's standard ways of how we treat and look at objects and things, say by color or by material, by topic, and I wanted to kind of really center on how it became mine. So with that, and with many drawings and sketches and a crazy disarray of my room, I created what I call a spectrum of absorption, which are different ways from passive to active ways that we gain an object. With that, it's generally, in my non-scientific approach, something that is thought, something that has been found or taken, something that is free, like a tote bag, or a keychain that you get when you buy something, something that was bought in real life, where you meet the object before purchasing it, something bought online, something that was given and gifted to you, and then eventually something that has been catered. With this, I started trying to figure out in terms of how closely we connect our identity to our things and what we end up using the most and what ends up becoming a burden. Since I started creating kind of simple matrices between either frequency of use or our personal idea of value to understand if there are certain assumptions or ideas of what ends up being used and what doesn't. With this, through these kind of experimenting and filtering through, I found out that actually quite a few things of the things that had been gifted to me, which I usually thought was I had a resentment of things that my mother has given to me that allowed me to not be able to determine my own identity or independence by choosing my own things. But then in fact, most of the things that I buy online are stuff that I never use. So in the end, who knows me better, myself or someone else? As I progressed in this master thesis, in this project, I started to focus on recommendation systems, because I think in our constant digitally dependent world and within these algorithms that are trying to piece and take certain data assets from you and determining what you think you need next, how are they making this happen? How are these algorithms working? And then what in fact do they want you to use? Is it for your benefit or is it for ulterior motives? As I've been doing this research, it's been very interesting just to see how these kind of consumer-centric websites and algorithms start working based on similarities, completing looks, complementary. And through this, it's really been a kind of overall understanding of how databases are working, how people are tagging images, and you could see reoccurring ways of how we end up tagging things, or things are being pulled, which originally was a beginning reason why I wanted to take stock of everything, also to see how we are really forming everything. So then when you go back and do research, as a side note, when I was a photo researcher, I would use a lot of photo archives, and it was actually quite hard to do some research or find certain things because of the way that groups of images or individual images were tagged with certain information. And I think going back and then retagging something, if we wanted to see it in a different light or something would come up, would be interesting, which I'm sure is a big digital humanities topic. Regardless, as I am graduating next month, and my final point or artifact at this moment, as which then I would like to continue studying, but is to recreate my own entire collection based on only recommendation systems. And I know some of you have been talking about agency and agencies of other digitized systems. And I think this is also really important in my project, is what kind of agency do we have in receiving? Where does the agency lie in my decision-making or in the decision-makings of these algorithms? And based on that, if I relinquish my agency completely and let the algorithm speak in completely fully without any sort of a decision-making on my end, is that a way for me to reveal something more about a larger system within this society, or how these algorithms end up working? And that will be my final artifact or experiment for this, and then perhaps further continuing down in another route based on the many dossiers and informations that I've been piling up in my room. And maybe hopefully will inform me as I gain my next object. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will stop sharing if I remember how to do that.
So now.
I hope now the presentation is ready. Otherwise, I have to improvise a bit. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much. So I like this, perfect. Okay, so let's start directly. About me, my name is Christian. I'm a PhD student in the Digital Humanities Lab at the University of Basel. Many of you know me already. I have a very diverse academic background. I came from business administration, history, political science, education, and now digital humanities. So it's a really, really wide approach. So I have a really strong research interest in the field of cultural heritage, particularly in understanding and preserving intangible cultural heritage. I believe that exploring and safeguarding our cultural heritage is crucial, as it provides insights into our collective identity and shapes who we are as individuals and as a whole society. So The second thing is politics. Really like politics, especially Swiss politics, because you have as well on canton level politics, and that's quite important for my topic of research, as you will see, because it's like this intersection between politics and society. And last but not least, data analytics, as most of you are here as well because of this point. So first of all, the base of my research is our Schnitzelbänke, and if you're not from Basel, then maybe you don't know what it is. So I will explain it shortly. On the right-hand side, you see the so-called Zettel. That's a paper snippet. So it's written down all about this Schnitzelbank, and they're written in verse in dialect in Baseldeutsch and are recited in 2 evenings in Basel. So they're about the grievances and events of the past year. And the specialists, they're like from bottom to up. So the normal people can criticize the higher people from the city without any problems. So what I like to do, I like to explore local social changes and the reflections in this Schnitzelbank of this UNESCO Basel Carnival. My planned focus areas are politics, the women's role, military, sports, economy, Basel self-image, and religion, and as well to explore the dynamics between this tradition and this societal transformation, because it's like 2,500 of these paper snippets from the last 100 years, so it's quite a long range. And why is it relevant what I'm doing? It's as well important for me, for myself, because I was sitting 2 days ago with the assistant professor in chemistry, and then it was like, okay, what am I doing? So is it important too? And I think it is, because I think it's really important for the understanding of the impact of the social change as well in cultural traditions, as I told before, because that's what we are as a society made of. And as well, it's quite important for the analysis of traditions with big data. And I'd like to do as well a survey at the end called Crossing Boundaries, because it's really important what's possible and what's not. The title, working title as well, like it's Narrenfreiheit. That's the fool's freedom. And now it's a question. We have in Switzerland this law. It's you're not allowed to cover your faces in public, but we have exceptions. One exception is medical reasons, and the other one is cultural traditions. And it's written down there, especially for carnival. So here you see as well this intersection between politics and this cultural tradition. I really liked it. So the last slide is about the risks of the method bias I have. First of all, I will do some text mining and pattern recognition. For text mining, I will come after you, Nicolas, for Transcribus. Thank you very much for the presentation before. The question is, do I have a sampling bias? Yes, I have. I know it already because there are like 4 societies in Basel and I have only the data from one. The annotations as well, the annotation is going on at the moment from a historian, but the question is, can I do it better, or can AI do it better? And as we heard before as well, like the black box AI, I really love to talk with you about these problems we will face in the near future as well for the academics. And in the survey, of course, it's like this selection bias. Do I select the right things? The question bias, do I ask the right things? And the respectively, the response bias. Are all people responding and not only a group? Because I think that's quite important. And yeah, it's like 15 seconds too early, but I hope this is well okay. And really like to discuss with you later, especially all the topics. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. It was only like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So really perfect. So are there any questions in the room? Before I go.
I mean, I have many questions. The first one, it's a question. If I understand you right, the corpus is actually not transcribed. It's still okay. It's all handwritten.
No, it's not handwritten. It's
okay.
How do you call it?
Print.
It's print, exactly.
And also the oldest ones.
Yes, even the oldest ones are, but they're in Basel German. So That's the
well,
only little problem. But
no,
no, not
No.
anymore.
not so much.
3 years ago, it would have been a big
Yeah.
problem.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's really cool material. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm a dialectologist, so
Yeah, maybe an interesting thing in your project is that it's the core are these snippets, but it's also combined with video, with audio material. So it's the wide range of things that can be combined in the digital. As we, I think also Chiara's project has a lot of very different things, and then you can, it sounds like, oh, it's the fool's freedom of the digital. You can just put everything in. It can be very heterogeneous and work with it. And I think it's a great opportunity, but also very, I mean, maybe we can really forget a lot of things that to think of when we're doing this of work. But I think it's also interesting how the intangible things maybe come in or get more space in the digital, because it's rather data or information than, as we talked about before, kind of physical object. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know what.
But I think that's as well like a huge risk, because you can do everything, but yeah, I think you should come to an end one day. And I think this is the big problem at the moment, just to stay focused and not to go too much left, too much right, and put everything together. So I think that's as well, it's a luxury problem, but it is a problem, I guess. So I don't know what you think. So
No, I absolutely agree. We're talking about our culture and something that we can't touch. And our identities are forged also many things that are not possible to reach without something. And this something is ourselves. And if we consider to lose all of those information about us, we will truly make a big mistake. So yeah, I what we were talking about.
and I think if I may, a huge problem is as well, like, just if you can do something, you don't have to do it, because it's not really relevant for your research question, or yeah, if it's just you like to do it, but it's not really makes sense, and we do a lot of things like this, then I don't know if you really should do it. You know what I mean? It's really like, yeah, just because you can do something, you don't have to do it, because if you stay focused, you maybe have more success at the end.
yeah, I think that's a good point, because your material is so diverse. You really need to focus to think what do you want to work with.
Maybe it's still too big at the moment. I don't know. The deep dive is only qualitative, not quantitative at the moment. So maybe I have to really reduce as well, like these different topics, to just 2 or 3 of them. That could be at the end. So
do you intend to do topic modeling?
Yeah. Yeah, but the problem is, if I have to do as well, if it's like the women's role, then you should put as well some theory about the women's role in the last 100 years in. So then at the end, if you do it for, yeah, it will be quite huge then. Yeah, it should only be like 250 pages maximum, Peter told me so.
Okay. So one last question. Yes.
Just concerning methods and tools and stuff. For the textual things, you're going to work with transcribers, as I can see, maybe. But for the interpretation and processing of the videos, for example, and the audio track,
that's not planned at the moment. I need to do it. That's
okay, because that would have been interesting what you can use to get the information out of that.
The information are
more automatically than
yeah,
just
but the thing is that
transcribing it
because
yourself.
they're like singing this verses, so that the text is the same more or less like in the written one. It's only like how they stand there. They have these pictures called Helgen, where you have as well pointed out with they painted it sometimes what in the verse is. So we could do this as well, but yeah, maybe we find some master students. I can give them good topics then.
Okay.
You rather search for some machine.
Yeah.
No, so thank you very much. I think, yeah. Next slide. So, is there Adrian? Okay, are you ready? Yes. Okay, so Beatrice is our first speaker. So if you're set, you can start.
Yes, so welcome to my presentation. We're going to really briefly talk about my research, as you all did as well. So first of all, my background. So I started with a bachelor's degree in art history and northern philology. And then I also very much enjoyed exploring the intersection of art and culture, which led me also to co-found a game studio, where I had the opportunity to explore innovative ways of storytelling and engagement, and also my joy of coding. After finishing my master's degree in art history and image theory, I then joined the Art Museum in Winterthur for a curatorial internship, where I gained valuable experience in managing and also curating art collections and exhibitions. And there I also experienced the gap between the analog and the digital in state-funded museums firsthand. So driven by my interest of cultural heritage in the digital realm, I decided to pursue a PhD in digital humanities. My research focuses on cultural heritage collection in a digital space and sustainable knowledge management. So my research question reflects on how the digital can be used to go beyond mere preservation towards greater community engagement and democratization to unlock new potential of cultural heritage collections. To address this question, I employ a multifaceted approach. So first, I conduct a comprehensive historic analysis of cultural heritage in the digital space by examining past developments and advancement. Then I gain insights into the evolution of this field. In addition, then I also conduct primary research, where I do interviews with museum experts who are at the forefront of engaging and in cultural heritage mediation. So these interviews then provide a diverse perspective to showcase those exciting examples and also best practices. So to complement the interviews, I also analyze use cases to compare them and discuss the different strategies that they use to mediate cultural heritage in a sustainable and engaging manner. And this analysis then helps to identify effective approaches and innovative techniques. So for the historical analysis, the process of cultural heritage in the digital space has evolved through different stages. So first of all, it began with preservation, as seen in the establishment of the Museum Computer Network already in 1967 to create a shared museum database prototype. And the close relationship between museums and computers continued when in 1968 there was already the first conference, Computers and the Potential Application in Museums, which was co-hosted by IBM and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This marked a significant step in recognizing the potential of digital technologies for cultural heritage. Over time, the field then shifted towards digital sustainability, aiming to ensure long-term accessibility, maintenance of digital cultural heritage, open access, and open data. And then this fostered a broader engagement and knowledge exchange. Then more recent principles such as FAIR and CARE have emerged to highlight the findable, interoperable data, reusable, but also the context to be responsible and ethically managed. In 2022, in August, the International Council of Museums, ICOM, revised their official definition of museums. So it's not just the traditional roles of collecting, conserving, interpreting, and so on anymore. It's also now encouraging to foster participation, diversity, and knowledge sharing, so as well as accessibility and sustainability. And even though the digital space is not intrinsically mentioned in this new definition, it offers the space to facilitate each of those additional tasks. Availability over the world at all times, opportunity to foster community engagement, thereby inclusivity and diversity, allowing reuse and opening access of databases. And therefore, the focus shifts towards engagement and long-term interest, creating interactive experiences that captivate audiences and foster long-lasting connections with cultural heritage. Now, when we look at the situation in Basel, it's not like that yet. So only 2/3 of all the museums in Basel have a digital collection online. And of those, only half have actually a filter which is deeper than 3 layers where you can actually find something when you're looking for something specific. And of those, only one allows for the Creative Commons license to actually reuse it, the information. But the online exhibitions and the tutorials are on the rise, as you can see. So therefore, I will do my case studies, as I said, to compare and discuss ways in which cultural heritage can be mediated in a sustainable and engaging way. And I have a lot of references, and that's already it because I talk really fast.
Thank you, Marian. It's a good skill to talk fast for this kind of ones. Would you be ready? So, is it right? Yeah, this is your presentation, right? So, okay, good start.
Now I can take it back.
With the red.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
My
you.
name is Andrei Aioanei. I'm a PhD at Strasbourg University. I have a bachelor in computer science and then a master and now a doctoral thesis in religious studies, archaeology, and cognitive science related to network theory, starting from corpus of materials, trying to link history and mathematics in a network, trying to speak more about ancient religion, network of trade. But today I want to show a research project that we have in synthetic data, machine learning, and museology, related with how can we automatize specific steps in presentation of specific inscription. Based on a data science workflow, in order that we have some kind of data collection mechanism, data analysis, data interpretation, or that data collection. Either we have inscriptions in the large number, like Nabatean inscriptions that are either in thousands found, but hard accessible, or very low inscriptions Aramaic, for example, language. But we can't learn, train a model to learn if we are scarce in the data. What we did in trying to apply, to switch to a manual presentation to automatize is just trying to build a machine learning approach. Because now what we have, for example, in this Nabatean inscription is just someone puts in a museum that is in the University of Strasbourg, but it's really, someone has to manage it, has to translate it, read it manually, has to research in a book what it's about it, who discovered it, and so on and so forth. And they are some kind of trying to make some squeezes out of it and to preserve it, and so this is only manual. And also alphabet, what kind of style it was, from what time, what is other inscription related. But what we wanted to do is just starting from the picture of an inscription, either Nabatean or either Aramaic, just to translate it automatically. Because either we have thousands, either we don't have anything, and the model can't learn, can adapt. And then what we try to do is just synthetically produce data, because label is costly, acquisition of collection is costly, everything is costly. But how to present it very fast? If, for example, in Amman or in other museums, because this is inscription, it's in Strasbourg, but we want to present it in Amman, and you don't have only one image. And we build an application only for testing, just by putting this is for test. You put the finger in a specific area and it takes the letter what it is. And for example, it's transliteration. It's translation also. And then also now we tried also to try to engage the museum viewer by linking also with the ChatGPT in order that you can also ask someone that it's in front of the inscription that if you want, what wants more to find out from the inscription. And in the future, we want to install it like a panel, like this. And in fact, the inscription, it will be maybe projected in a screen. And how we did that, it's in fact with that synthetic data. Marian will be bored because he got it about. But I think the future will be very synthetically in machine learning. And we produce, in fact, synthetic images to balance with annotation generation automatically in a number of thousands for each alphabet. And then the models automatically learn the language, either Aramaic or either Nabatean. And then we produce in the thousands. We have a specific architecture that learns it. And then we tested on the Marian model that transliterated in the Marian's model. And thank you. That was
Thank you very much. You are our last.
Yes.
Are you ready?
I will use way too much time. No. Okay, welcome. I'm Adrian. I have just recently started with my dissertation in digital humanities at the University of Bern, which is also why I have the privilege to be here today. I have a background in design research. I obtained my master's at the Applied University of the Arts in Bern last year. And I'm part of this research project called Confederatio Ludens, which is interested in the history of Swiss video games. So it's a thing, believe me. In my dissertation, as well as this research project, I'm interested in this, which is to say not only half-naked man, but also the image, respectively the visuality of video games. So I'm asking questions like what's on it, why does it even exist, how was it made, and most importantly, what does it mean? Within this frame, I'm specifically interested in the transformation of code, which is hardware instructions, into the image that we see on screen. I propose that game code and the image on screen are two halves of something that should be seen together. So why is this interesting to me? Coding in order to produce the image in video games is a bimodal activity. So you work in one mode, text, to create an output in another mode, which is the image. And this is an under-researched area in design research. The problem is that these two aspects are situated in two completely different domains, and they need different kinds of knowledge and different kinds of skills to be researched. So I'm interested in how programmers go about this activity and how they and this activity shape the discourse on visuality. So just imagine how, just recall how pixels and glitches found their way in our aesthetic vocabulary. I'm furthermore also interested in how these two modes interact and interrelate, and how there is a transformation or translation of meaning from one semantic system into another, which is closely related to the methods that I'm applying. So video game studies treat games as texts, which means there's lots and lots of critical reading going on my end. On the more technical side, I have critical code analysis, which proposes that program code, source code, is not only functional instructions for machines, but it's also a cultural artifact written by and for humans. From my background, I bring discourse analysis and design research. So video games are things designed with intentions towards specific effects. So somebody who's making a video game, they want us to experience something. And design research looks specifically at those intentions and these effects. And last but not last, I'm creating context by the horror game politics method, which is a source critical approach brought forward by my supervisor, Eugen Pfister, and his research colleague, Arno Görgen. The HGP method is heavily relying on paratextual material, but also includes social dimensions and, of course, the historicity of this video game. So, since this is a rather young project, there is no findings to be discussed yet, but if you want to help me do research, come by and we can play Necronome, which is one of the games from our corpus, which we are focusing on right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
For
for this. Yeah, perfectly. I mean, 1 minute too early. Can you do something more else? No. Are there any questions in the room or online? So maybe I start, but we won't have much time. And I have to give you some more information as well. So, but listening to your presentations, I thought maybe like changing towards only synthetic data, maybe the better way, you know? So would it be like easier or to document and position and reflect the agencies of these data and not so much combining like the very humanistic approach or the things we do as arts and humanities scholars, but rather separate it and use it as a tool rather than as a help for us, kind of thing. I'm not very precise in my question, but kind of, yeah, I was wondering what you think about the synthetic data. I mean, we heard your point. Or
if I can start, first of all, they come anyway from a domain like medical system. Agriculture, for example, I was papers in my coordinate professor from agricultural competition, in which you can't train, you don't have access to private data. You have to train specific models to take either disease plants very fast or either medical diseases in a body, but you don't have access to real data. Then you have to train models. This is one. Also in agriculture, you build only some materials like in Blender, no? Make it as realistic as possible. Models are not, they don't have to have real or realistic. You have to emphasize specific area. This maybe like that. What we have is we have to develop specific ages. We have to concentrate on how specific area of object in time, because you have to construct. It's ancient anyway. You don't know how it was maybe this time. Just make it either as realistic, emphasize as and yeah, who orders them? Who do it? Because the agency is not in the object time. We studied from science that for recognition, just agency is not in the object, distributed, embedded in specific, extended, body.
How about the performance of the recognition model?
Yeah, recognition, correct. You have around 90 something for really obvious letters, no problem. And for the deteriorate letters 70, it has. But we have it in iteration mode, because we have some fixed iteration modes in which he's retrained based on some kind of skillful specialists that adjust the machine then to emphasize more big letter that is deteriorate, saying that he has to go in direction. But it's still for deprecated letters still detects, because we simulate also the deprecation letter. It's not very accurate always, but we have a benchmark. Right? We had real images 100, and we put it a professor, the machine, and a study. And the machine was highly the level of a professor. When a model reaches at least the medium person, then okay.
One last question, and then I need to switch to some information.
Do you plan to publish that, like to use it openly? Because it's like a bit like a 3D shapy version of Transcribus. What you're doing a bit, I mean,
yes,
it's both pixel information, but in the end, you're using
the paper is in the review now because it's published in the Journal of Computing and Cultural Heritage. We published, you know, the theoretical. But I show now Asian to museology, that coordination with idea, study of German and Arab studies. They wanted to apply it to museums because they have a large corpuses of Nabatean inscriptions, and they want to make fancy displays or for public or so. But the theoretical part, it will be published.
All right.
So thank you very much. So I think it's a good start. So you heard about some snippets of everybody who's doing his research or her research. So I think we have enough time the following days also to continue on discussing and ask more questions. What I wanted to show you is that I just mentioned the 3D workshop from tomorrow, but I didn't show you any program. So please, the website of the Istituto Svizzero has the best overview of the program and who's talking on this 3D workshop program, as you can see here on this side. These are all the presentations that will take place here. And the other thing is that you can then have your one-to-one consultations with your supervisors. Upstairs in smaller rooms. This is important information. Do I need there's some other information? Christian, this is did I present you Christian? Because he's very important. Marian is very important, but he will leave. So. It's none of your business anymore.
Off from.
And so we are very happy that Tobias Hodl joined us. So welcome. And Christian was here before, but I think now the full team is here and we can gather together and take an apéro. No? Ah, no. I wish. No, we have now a break, and you can take an individual apéro, I guess. But then we have our keynote from Peter von Ara, which will be here. Genau. So thanks and see you soon. No?
for the day.
So that we would go at 8.
Okay.
We will leave here at 8. I think we also 5 minutes from here. That's really close.